Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson.
Deborah Nelson, the newly elected Democratic Party chairperson. Are you a chairperson or a chairman?
I'm a chairperson. Just a chair, actually.
A chair?
I'm a chair.
Oh, okay. So after you're in there a while, you'll become a person or a chairman?
I don't think I'll ever become a person.
You'll just be a chair?
Yeah, just a stick of furniture.
Okay, folks, it's going to be tough for Republican, Democrat, but she's heading in the right direction. Hope you enjoyed the last show. Hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend thinking about the brave soldiers, men and women who have fought for the freedoms that we have in this country today. And we hope that all of the side trash that comes about during Memorial Day, especially in Pensacola, did not overwhelm that. Our servicemen and women deserve a day. They fought hard. They have lost their lives to protect us, and that's what Memorial Day is all about. Now, we talked a little bit last week about an organization that had reared its ugly head by the name of Rebuild Northwest Florida, continuing to eat at your tax dollars.
Devour, gobble them up.
They gobble, gobble, gobble. It's just like Pac-Man.
All in the name of helping poor people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we always want to help poor people.
Yeah.
No matter, you know, even if it does put gas money into our Cadillac Eldorado, we're still here to help poor folks.
Well, sometimes you need to make $85,000 a year to properly help poor people.
Yeah.
You need to make that kind of a salary.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you, completely and utterly. Only people who earn $100,000 a year can determine which grandma's roof to fix.
That is correct.
Or which grandma's shutters, house needs shutters on it.
Well, it's a competitive environment, and you have to give people a reason to stick around.
Well, you have to get the best.
You got it right.
You have to get the absolute best.
Recruit them away from Walmart.
When you're going to Tallahassee, Florida, and bringing back millions of dollars, of which you're going to take a very large percentage of, that's where having key people pays off. Yeah, absolutely. You know, picking which grandma, well, pretty much anybody can do that. You know, but it's just gathering the money that apparently takes those well-heeled individuals.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got another group that Deborah and I we talk about from time to time. It's called the Tourist Development Council, and in a nutshell, our legislature, they're actually written into law that each county will have a tourist development council, and it's all laid out specifically in law.
There's a bed tax that funds them.
It's a bed tax, you know, when you stay in a hotel room, or I don't know, I think certain maybe RV parks and things of that nature. There's a formula there that dollars come in on, and of course they all have an obligation to be in the sunshine and show us what they do with their money. But we're gonna for this portion of the discussion, we're going to talk about the Tourist Development Council of Escambia County, and they have done so many wonderful things in the eyes of the state that they decided to say, well, BP is going to put out about $4.4 million, and we'd like you, the Tourist Development Council, to hand that money out. And so every organization that had an interest in free money,
yeah.
showed up, and when the dust settled, according to, and this was written by Carlton Proctor of the Pensacola News Journal, I want to give him credit for it. Of the total of 4.4 million, 90% was given to three organizations: the Pensacola Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, $2.5 million for public relations and gift cards. The Perdido Key Chamber was given almost $1 million, and the DeLuna Fest, a 3-day musical, was also given a great deal of money. Now, here's what I have to say about this. That's fine. BP was in error. BP decided to do this. don't necessarily have a problem with the Tourist Development Council handling it. But folks, here's where I do have a problem. The Pensacola Chamber of Commerce has refused all attempts to look at their books.
And you've made several attempts.
I've made several attempts. Now, when I say attempts, I have asked, as a citizen, as a part owner of a TV show, I've asked, and continue to be rebutted. I have not taken it to the next level.
I think, and let's clarify, their position, I believe, is that they are not subject to sunshine
They're
law.
not. They're quote unquote not under contract, but they are under contract because the Escambia County and the city of Pensacola both have said you're going to handle
Right.
economic development.
Stepping in the shoes of government.
This is the Pensacola Chamber that we're talking about, folks. And look, I wish the Pensacola Chamber the best of luck from the bottom of my heart. I hope they're successful. But also from the bottom of my heart, they're going to account for $2.5 million. Just want to let you know ahead of time. I know you got a new head person over there. I know you got some new people over there. But the citizens are going to know how you spent this money. So, and that's going to include the salaries of all the people that are paid over there and all the benefits packages and how this money's spent. So, wish you the best of luck, but it's coming. You'll get the email in the near future. So we just wanted to throw that out. Now, folks, we had, in my opinion, one of the worst legislative sessions in the history of the state of Florida.
And see, I agree with you.
There you go.
We agree on most stuff, actually.
The main one that I am upset about, and I'm not going to be quiet about it, is that due to the Maritime Park court ruling and the first DCA court ruling, if your elected officials or if appointed board members that are a legal organization in the state of Florida decide to not allow you to speak at their meetings, they can do that, and you'd have to go to court. And we did have a House member and we had a Senate member that both wrote a bill to correct the Sunshine Law so that the Sunshine Law said the right to participate, the right to speak, the right to speak to specific agenda items. I think that was the prudent and the right thing to do. The problem is those two bills never got out of committee. So this is what I, Jerry Cooey, citizen of planet Earth, citizen in good standing in the United States of America, and a Florida citizen, this is what I take from the legislature on that specific item. Freedom of speech is not important to you. You would rather us be dumb and not allowed to ask any questions. They don't care what my input might be. I'm not happy about it. I am going to be willing to allow a little more movement in court over this. And I hope that it gets to the Supreme Court very quickly, and I hope that the Supreme Court gets the right answer. Should the Supreme Court not get the right answer, you will find me, along with many citizens throughout the state of Florida, standing on a street corner near you, asking you to protect your right of free speech with a constitutional amendment. Now, I hope that they get it right. I don't know. But for the legislature to sit on their hands in a representative form of government who should be listening to the people that elect them, and those bills do not even get out of committee, it's an absolute shame. Folks, I'll leave you with one final thing on this. Without free speech, we have nothing. Okay, folks? They have the steamroller, and without free speech, you have nothing. I want you to keep that in mind. It is very important.
Because, for instance, any kind of public meeting, say a county commission meeting, something's going on, you can email them all day long, you can call them all day long. When you go out there in front of them at the podium with people watching and you raise those issues,
right,
sometimes that's the only venue where stuff gets raised.
It makes a difference.
Yeah. And it forces them to answer it on the record.
Absolutely.
And they don't like to be forced to answer stuff about them on the record.
In 2003, we had 5 commissioners at that time that felt like they needed to increase property taxes. And we put 347 people in the room with protesters out front and Channel 3 News, and let me tell you, whoop, so much for the property tax increase.
Yeah.
All right. And look, and I often hope that I don't have to take it to that level. Now, I will tell you that 3 of those commissioners that were in favor of that, John Broxson, Tom Stewart, and Gordon Gooden, are no longer with us, and I will tell you that I took a great deal of pleasure and put out a great deal of effort to make sure that they're no longer with us. All right? And I believe that we've replaced them with better commissioners. But you have to have people in office that won't even try that to start out with. And so...
Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, we will see what happens. I do not believe that we have a group of commissioners right now that would ever try that, because they know better.
No, I don't think so either. But I mean, we saw it happen with the Maritime Park, where they wouldn't let people talk,
right.
And there were some issues that were not raised that should have been raised about handicap access and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
It's an important issue.
Absolutely.
And it just they need to be reminded of who's in charge, and that's really sometimes the only way to remind
See,
them.
how many times have I read it to them?
Yeah, you've been up there a lot.
Okay, look, folks, our elected so-called leaders in some cases can do whatever they want to. I'm going to stand on the Constitution, which gives me the right to peaceably assemble for a redress of my grievances with my government, period, end of story. Now, I'm a huge supporter of the Sunshine Law. Don't get me wrong. It's marvelous and it covers many things. But most importantly, the Founding Fathers and the Florida Constitution both say that we have the right to peaceably assemble for a redress. Now, I understand that some uneducated judge, such as Charles Kahn, might say that redress doesn't mean speak.
Right.
But, that's a topic for another discussion. But excuse me, we have several items here on the legislature. Go ahead, Deborah, hit the next one.
Well, they didn't bother to even, I guess, argue for this bill, public speaking.
Right.
But they did manage to get past a bill that's going to probably raise insurance rates for homeowners, very possibly double them in 5 years.
Right.
What it does, and I'm going to read out, this was SB 408.
Right.
It shrinks from 5 years to 3 years, the time that homeowners can file claims for damage, for hurricane damage. It lets insurers make homeowners pay for repairs themselves before getting reimbursed.
Now, let's stop on that one for a minute, folks. A hurricane has come through your area. What little bit of cash that you had available was spent on the hotel, buying the generator, and trying to take care of yourself. You suck up a great deal of your savings. There's virtually no communications, and your insurance company is going to say, go ahead and pay the contractor $25,000 out of your pocket, and then if we believe the repairs were necessary and we believe that they were done to our spec, we will somewhat consider reimbursing you. That's what that says, folks. That one blows me away.
Yeah, well, there's that, and then it also lets them raise rate. Normally when they raise rates, they have to get the insurance regulator, state regulator approval.
Now think about this for a minute, folks. Now, you've watched it since Hurricane Ivan. A couple insurance companies, I'm not going to name them, but they've at least had to come forward and ask the legislature for permission to raise the rates. Now, that does 2 things.
Well, it's the insurance regulators they ask.
That does 2 things. Number one, it alerts the citizens so that they will know to have input with their state rep or their state senator. And number 2, if it's legitimate, it gives the insurance company an opportunity to prove the legitimacy of the increase.
Right.
I mean, fair is fair. This new law that our governor, who's at a 28% approval rating, which doesn't surprise me in the least.
I hate to say I told you so.
This allows them to raise the rates whenever they want to. So, folks, you're going to be sitting at home and things have finally settled out and you think, my goodness, maybe everything's going to be okay. And then the insurance bill comes in and says, you are a loyal customer of ours, and to show our appreciation, your rates is going to go up only 20% this year.
Well, 15. They can jack them up 15%.
Yeah.
They can jack them up 15%. And that's for so-called reinsurance. Insurance companies take your money and they invest, but they also buy reinsurance from, say, Lloyd's of London. And then if they, run into a problem, they've got that insurance coming their way. And so they can say, well, those rates went up.
So we have to go.
Yeah, we don't have to go through a hearing. Here, pay us more money.
And we don't have to be open about it. We can just say that we want to.
We can just tell you that we need more money.
And folks, the reason we're bringing these up, and Deborah certainly agrees with me, the speech bill, the entire legislature should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely threw us under the bus over that. Every person who voted for this insurance bill threw us all under the bus
And
again. Senator
Gates and Senator Evers both voted in favor of this insurance bill.
Yep. Both your senators voted for it. I am not happy about it. And
it's very anti-consumer, let's put it that way.
Well, fair is fair. Put your books out there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm okay if your losses, I understand how insurance works. If your losses is put an insurance company into the red, and you have to go up a couple years to get back to a reasonable number so that we'll continue to be protected, I'm okay with that.
Let's not forget that a lot of them's losses come from dabbling in the stock market and speculating in the stock market.
Right.
Why do I have to pay for that?
Well, and the other thing, folks, and while we're on insurance, I'm not going to let it pass without saying it. Every last one of us pays $200 a year to go into Citizens Insurance so that somebody can have a beautiful view of the beach. And I am not happy about that.
Well, because you can't necessarily get it. If everyone had access to Citizens, it would be a different story. If anybody who wanted to could buy into Citizens.
Anyone who wants to live on the beach, anyone who wants to live within 3 to 5 miles of the coastline, they should be in an insurance pool all to themselves. Well, the mainlanders,
it's called federal flood insurance.
The mainlanders, such as you and I, who live 35 miles from the coastline, we live here for a reason. We live here because typically a hurricane has slowed down enough it won't take our house away from us.
Right.
We don't have the view of the sand and the seagulls for a reason. We choose to make that sacrifice because we are trying to exercise intelligence in the matter.
Right.
Anybody who is built up in those dangerous areas, they should be in there in one pool themselves, and whatever it costs, that's what it costs. The rest of us, which there are more mainlanders than there are beach dwellers, the rest of us shouldn't have to pay a premium so that they get to live a different lifestyle than I do.
Right.
So what's next?
Well, and then, of course, we also had this elections bill that's been hotly contested, passed. This was HB 1355. It makes it, and Governor Scott signed it. And I understand there may be a lawsuit from the League of Women.
Let's hope there is. Now let's think about this for a moment, folks. For a long time now, which I think is the right thing to do, we've had 2 full weeks of early voting.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
To help the citizens who work over a 2-week period, all of us who want to vote, we're going to catch an off day or an afternoon or an early morning that will allow you to vote early, so that you don't have to specifically vote on the Tuesday of an election. What I do not understand is and now I will repeat to you what one of our state representatives said, Mr. Clay Ingram. He said it was to reduce voter fraud.
Right. What fraud? What fraud have they discovered?
Yeah. Well, if we're having a problem with voter fraud, we shouldn't be wasting our time on how many days of early voting.
Well, and I'm not even aware of one case. Show me where it's happened.
Hasn't been any. Folks, once again, our legislature messing around with the elections, making it harder for you to vote, making it harder in some cases to go out and register people to vote.
Right.
This whole bill is anti-citizen. It is against you. It is to help your legislature retain the power that they have. They were not thinking about you when they passed this bill. They were thinking about their selfishness and themselves of continuing to be elected.
Yeah, the League of Women Voters has now said they're not going to be able to register voters anymore. And I think it'll be the same for other civic groups, because it's a big penalty if you don't get the registration form turned into the supervisor of elections within 48 hours.
Right. Well, look, folks.
To say you do it on a Friday night.
Here's several items that we've already pointed out to you. The legislature doesn't care about you. They really don't. And the one thing, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, in all of the fussing and fighting that went on in Tallahassee this year, where was the discussion about jobs?
Yeah.
Where was the discussion about expanding industry in the state of Florida? Where was the discussion about reducing workman's comp so that some of our businesses could get relief of their overhead? Where's all that at?
I'll tell you where that is. Here's what they've done. This is their excuse for that front, is they've completely dismantled the growth management process in the state. The way it had worked up until this new law now is, and as of now, we don't know if the law is going to be signed yet.
Right.
As of this taping, we don't know if it's been signed. But what it looks like if Scott signs it is, the way it had worked was large-scale developments. There's a process they go through. They have to have a review. The state reviews them.
Right. Department of Community Affairs.
Right, which is going to go away and completely be dismantled and come under the same branch of the executive as economic development comes under.
Right. And
be greatly reduced in scope. The public had a say. The public had input with these huge developments.
Yeah, folks. What Deborah's saying here is along the steps of this process, you had an opportunity to go forward and say, I think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, or I think it's a horrible thing.
Well, and county commissioners could say, there's a problem with this. It's not financially feasible.
Right.
And the other thing was the concurrency requirement, which said that there have to be roads, water, and schools available to serve this development before it's built. You can't just build a development and there's no infrastructure, because then the public end up having to pay for the infrastructure. Well, that's been dismantled.
Right, and let me tell you, and one of these that started to occur in Santa Rosa County, even when we had some of these rules and all in place, was the Jubilee with 20,000 houses, with zero infrastructure being put in. Go do whatever you want to, and this was even when there was some oversight, folks. Think about now, without the Department of Community Affairs, there's not going to be a stopgap. What is going to occur is, and look, I understand in the United States of America how our economic system works, is people are rewarded for good decisions and punished for bad decisions. But you're going to have somebody that's going to say, for example, in Escambia County, 19,000 acres that they want control of how the rezoning's going to be done.
No, their sector plan.
The sector plan, and that's going to happen without any review, and they can do whatever they want to.
Once this bill signed,
right. It won't matter what you think about it. They won't have to put infrastructure in. They can just cut the lots. They're not going to be required to get a review from anybody, and it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess.
It's going to be terrible sprawl.
You know, we don't have. Look, and I've listened to a couple developers that howled about how many processes they have to go through and all that. I understand that, but there again, a regional impact development affects us all, folks. The one on Jubilee was not going to affect just people 500 feet from Jubilee. It was going to affect the upper north end of the county. Right. And the other thing, when you start talking about taking the review process out, you got less of an arm twisting method to get the schools paid for by the development, the roads paid for, the additional fire departments paid for, all of that. build the houses, build the subdivision. It impacts us all, and then I wish you all the best of luck. Here's an increased tax bill to pay for the infrastructure that you have to have.
Yeah.
And just so wrong. And this, look, the state of Florida has been fraught for years with land development fraud that has occurred all the way back to when DeLuna stuck his toe on the beach.
Sure.
And now's not a time to get rid of oversight.
Well, and the worst part of it is that they've redefined growth management as some kind of economic development function, which means they're saying, once again, building houses is the only industry that we're going to focus on in the state.
Right.
And, we're just going to let them go hog wild again because, because we got nothing else we want to work for.
Yeah, well, and look, folks, that goes back to my comment a moment ago. The state of Florida has some of the highest workman's comp in the southeastern United States of America. That keeps businesses from coming in here. I'll give you an example of how expensive it is. I talked with a well-known roofing contractor in Santa Rosa County after Hurricane Ivan, where they had to pick up extra people to cover the load and all that. For every $1 that he paid out in salary, he paid $1 into workman's comp.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're paying somebody $12 an hour, it was costing him $24 an hour just to cover the salary and the workman's comp.
Yeah.
Not counting if he had any additional benefits above that. And there's so many things the legislature should have been working on. But we played patty cakes with a bunch of stupidity, and then of course you have them that write books and some of them under investigation. Now, my band director, for example, at Milton High School, after 16 years, and he's dealing with anywhere from 130 to 180 kids in the band, teaching them music and doing the marching and all these other events, he finally got an assistant band director. And due to the cuts in this, he's now back to one person overseeing 180 students.
We had an 8% cut to schools, public schools, with this.
Now, do I think we need to reallocate some money within the schools? Absolutely. Sure. Amen.
But their budget discussions they have several very public, open budget discussions, the school district here, every year, and you can go and you can read their whole budget. They put it out very nicely and neatly, and you can comment on that.
Right.